Shalom, 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 baruchim habaim. Welcome to Awakening Torat Mussar Mindfulness. This is our public offering that we delve into the weekly Torah portion from the lenses of Mussar, of the Jewish tradition, and mindfulness coming from Theravada Buddhism, of the path of the Dharma, to learn from our ancestors and from God, the Almighty, of how to move forward on this path and life to be of service to God and others. I am Rabbi Chasya Uriel Steinbauer, so delighted to be with you today. It is Sunday here in Haaretz in Israel, May 11th, just turned in the middle of the night. So if you're headed over on the western side of the world, it is still Motzei Shabbat and might even be the Sabbath still. If you're headed over on the eastern board, you're well into your day on Yom Rishon on Sunday, perhaps even getting closer towards the end. So welcome to all of you. Delighted to be here with you. Today it is on the Jewish calendar, the 13th of Iyar, the Hebrew month of Iyar, the Hebrew day, the year of Tafshen Pei 5785. We are jumping into a Torah portion that took place a while ago, 2 months ago, on March 1st, 2025. And it was actually Rosh Chodesh, the first of Adar, the Hebrew month of Adar. We're covering the Torah portion TERUMAH. TERUMAH comes after Mishpatim. We're well past halfway now. I think 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 9, 10, 11. Yeah, halfway through the book of Shemot. So we are going to give a summary of what this Torah portion is, and then we'll delve into what we think the master middah, the soul trait, the personality trait, the virtue that stands out in this Torah portion, and also to learn from our path of the 50 ways of acquiring Torah according to the Mishnah, our classic rabbinic text. So we are on the 19th way of acquiring Torah. So I will jump into that and look at the Parasha from that lens, and then we'll go into some practice together of mindfulness meditation, and then we'll call it a night, a day, whatever it is. So let's jump in. What happens in TERUMAH? Now, TERUMAH is a special Torah portion because it basically really shows us the gifts that the Israelites, our ancestors, the Hebrews, brought and wanted to bring to build the Mishkan, the sanctuary, the dwelling place, essentially. Okay? So God tells Moshe to collect donations. Actually, it's a commandment to bring as a gift that comes from one's heart of gold, silver, fabrics, oil, spices, woods, precious stones, and other materials to build the sanctuary in the wilderness, the Mishkan. Moshe receives instructions for building the different utensils of the Mishkan called kelim, vessels. The aron, the ark, would be made with wood and covered in gold. It would contain the luchot, the tablets of the Aseret Hadibrot, which gets translated as 10 commandments in the Western cultures. Really, it's 10 utterances. On top of the aron are going to be 2 golden cheruvim, winged angels, and God would speak to Moshe from in between the cheruvim. The shulchan, the table, is also made of wood and gold and would hold special loaves of bread called lechem ha-panim. The menorah, the 7 oil lamps, it would be designed with cups shaped like almond blossoms, and it would be hammered out of a single piece of gold. And the walls of the Mishkan would be made out of 48 wooden boards held together by silver sockets and golden poles. and a wooden mizbeach covered the copper, would be in the courtyard of the Mishkan, and this is where animals would be sacrificed. So that's a general kind of overview of what goes on in this Torah portion. I think I want to say a little bit more. Just come to my notes here. Give me 1 second. No, I guess I actually, yeah. I think one of the important things that sticks out here that a lot of people don't really pay attention to is the Torah, and I think it actually was Franz Rosenweg who said this, that the amount of text and time spent in the Torah the rest of the time will be given to the building of this Mishkan and the sanctuary and life in it. And during the whole 4 years in the wilderness, and it takes up all the time and space. And very few people then really name the significance of that, which is, this is where the locus of our attention should be. There's something very important here. And we're going to hold that kind of in the back of our minds, okay? So what happens here? If you're following along, we are in Shemot, the book of Shemot, Exodus, chapter 25, verse 1, we start, and it goes to chapter 27, verse 19. So in chapter 25, even the opening, the first 2 pasukim, right here, it says, Vayidaber Adonai al Moshe lemor. So Hashem says to Moshe, saying, Daber el bnei Yisrael, ve'yikhu li terumah me'et kol ish asher yidvanu libo, tikhu et terumati. Tell the Israelites, the people, to bring me gifts. Now, first of all, tell the Israelite people, everyone, this is going to be a sanctuary for everyone. Everyone will participate, everyone will collect, everyone will contribute, and everyone will participate. It's not just a sanctuary for the elite or just the priests. Okay, so that's the first thing to note. All of the Israelites are to bring me gifts, right? To bring gifts, tell them to bring me gifts. You shall accept gifts from me from every person whose heart so moves him or her. That's a generally, but it basically, what is the exact definition? It means that their heart was full of generosity. That's the shoresh, that's the root. It comes from nidivut, right? Nun dalet vet is the shoresh, is the root. We have yid vanu. It's whose heart was full of generosity, right? That's what moved them. They wanted to give. Okay, so the master middah, of course, the master virtue, soul trait here is nadivut. It is this idea that it's actually this beautiful dance of, and why should they do this? So that God may dwell among them, not dwell in the sanctuary, but dwell among the people, among the community. Okay, so we have here a human virtue of nedivut, that this, when you come with nedivut, with generosity, it's being met by the same nedivut, the same generosity of a divine attribute, of Hashem, of God, coming to dwell with them. So when we learn about nedivut as a middah, as a soul trait, as a virtue, it's one that we are in concert in a relationship with the divine. As we are generous, so is God. When we think that we are to emulate the divine, generosity is one of those great emulations. I always like to think when I was a little girl and I was being generous, I gave a little flower to somebody, or of course those wonderful weeds where you blow and all the wonderful seedlings went out. That as I was being generous, God was meeting with a kiss of generosity. So when our ancestors are finishing, they are building the eternal dwelling place, right? To house the luchot, the laws handed down to Moshe from Har Sinai, from Mount Sinai. It causes that God will dwell among them. And this outside generosity coming with all these gifts gets matched with an inside, right? Inside Kedusha, inside holiness. It's a fulfillment of amazing integrity, that the outside behavior shall match the inside. What is worthy inside is worthy because of the generosity from the people on the outside. And it's worthy then of God dwelling among them. It is a consequence of the behavior. And as Franz Rosenberg said, that a people who were once enslaved in Egypt are now performing labor and bringing out of free will for the sake of their God, not for the sake of a slave taskmaster or for Egyptian emperor, Pharaoh. It's very, very profound. Okay, so the final thing I will say about dwelling among them is that this whole commandment to bring out of the generosity of your heart these gifts is to start habituating the people and orienting their service and their hearts to performing for their God and creating sacred space that will also be mimicked and emulated in their own tents, their own homes. So if you look at the careful language, as I said earlier, of what Hashem says that comes on verse 8, chapter 25, verse 8, where it says, Vasuli mikdash, veshachanti betocham. Make for me a mikdash, a sanctuary, that which is holy, right? And I may, and I will dwell, I will be a neighbor, a shechen, right? A shechen, shechena, from shechona and shechina, all of that related neighborhood, feminine aspect of the divine, that I may dwell among them and with them. So, looking very careful at this text, God dwelling is not in it. It doesn't say betoch hamikdash, betoch oto, right? Betoch to. It doesn't say that. The Hebrew is very clear that it's among them, among the people of Israel. And the verb to dwell is not actually common Hebrew, okay? The not common, like yeshuv, right? But even rare is this shachem, okay? And it has a very different connotation. This verb conveys the idea of temporary lodging in a tent. It characterizes a nomadic lifestyle. It's also why the structure of the Mishkan and why the verbal form is frequently used together with ohel, meaning tent, in connection with nomads, which is the life of our ancestors in the midbar, in the wilderness. The noun Mishkan is often employed with ohel, with this designation of wilderness tabernacle, tent of the pack, tent of meeting. And so the sanctuary, we have to be very clear here, is not meant to be literally understood as God's abode, okay? As that was in the pagan institutions of the surrounding culture of the time. It is a tangible conception of God's elements, right? The indwelling of God's presence in the camp, that we and our ancestors are to orient our hearts and minds. So with that, that's something very important, that when you are being generous, and just like our ancestors, you bring free will offering, right? This gift, you're orienting your heart to make space for the indwelling of God and holiness between you and others. You're not looking for final destination, that God dwells here and doesn't leave and move. It's very profound. Okay. So this is where I want us to really understand and see how the virtue of medivut, of generosity, is so important. So how does that tie to our Mishnah, our 50 ways of acquiring Torah? I always, when I say that, think of that song. I think it's 50 ways, right? 50 ways to leave your lover. So that always pops up to me, right? When I think of the 50 ways of acquiring Torah. So we're on number 19. And 19 is mi'ut ta'anug, right? What is ta'anug? It is pleasure, right? It's a certain kind of pleasure, though, okay? So it means limiting pleasure. Pleasure in this sense is the physical pleasure, the pleasures of the five senses or more. All right? So there's a real sense that to acquire Torah, we are to limit pleasure. Now, if you know anything about Judaism and the path, it's not opposed to pleasure at all. We have no specific tradition of celibacy or monastics or any kind of popular across-the-board aesthetic traditions. Self-denial is limited in scope and application, like during Yom Kippur and others. And there's even a famous statement coming out of the Gemara of the Jerusalem Talmud that teaches us that on Judgment Day, Hashem will call of us to be account of every permissible thing that we might have enjoyed in life, but we didn't allow ourselves. So we see here that pleasure is not the problem in and of itself, okay? There's no objection to that. So why limit it as a path to acquiring Torah? So it comes down to how much you are pursuing pleasure, how much your life and orientation, how you're spending your money, how you're spending your time, how you're spending your thoughts, that kind of life force and life energy. Is it towards pleasure, right? Are you supplanting the path and the spiritual as your guiding principle in life for pleasure? And so the key thing is to look at, are we allowing the pursuit of pleasure, the path as pleasure, to be one that rules over us? So, and this can range from food to sexual encounters, relationships, to drugs, to exertion and the drive of exercise or extreme sports. Or I even see it sometimes teaching this many years now, where there's this like endless spiritual pursuit, but it's really a physical pursuit. It's like going to the next teacher and the next retreat and the next thing. Like it's all about a ruling over of acquiring. And it's really, it's not wholesome. It's not wise. It's not skillful. So people begin to lose themselves, whether it's, have to buy the next set of organic cotton sheets at the highest thread count, or, you know, that perfect cup of coffee that has that exact blend from whatever country and so forth. So there's a concern that we have to be awake of when we are indulging the body in the pursuit of pleasure too much at the expense of our connection to the spiritual. So what does this have to do? What is the connection? And I have to say, I feel like it's always shefa, it's abundance and grace, chen, from Hashem. Every time I start reading the new Mishnah text of how to acquire Torah, how much it just has something to teach about our Torah portion, and it's such a gift that there's this connection and something to teach us and to learn. So if you look, I just want to see if there's anything else that I want to say to you here before I get into the Torah portion. Just I mean, I've reiterated this in different ways, but when you kind of question what happens when I allow myself to be captivated by the pursuit of pleasure, whether it's tongue, skin, whatever it might be, there's our ancestors teach us, especially in the Mussar tradition, this idea, and this comes from Rav Shlomo Walby, that our soul nature, right, is obscured. We tend to forget who we are. We lose sight of things. And I think what's important as a path, and especially if you see this as like, this is something I want to inquire Torah by, one practice is to start really just journaling, almost like a cheshbon hanefesh, an accounting of the soul, to take a look at how you spend your day, write down everything you do, and take a good look at which activities, which deeds, thoughts, words are centered around pleasures. And which could be like the morning coffee, it could be a particular lunch, it could be someone you speak to regularly that day, a television show you watch. And you begin to look at, where could I limit a pleasure without eliminating it, right? Limit it without eliminating. You can tone it down. There's a way to orient your heart to reducing attachment to the physical that delivers to you. Okay? And this is where I'm going to say, this is where it ties to our Torah portion. I had said that God had called upon us and our ancestors to give freely from generosity. And what are we giving? All those things that cause physical pleasure, right? Look at the gifts again. Think of our ancestors in the midbar, in the wilderness, right? And what they have to offer that causes them physical pleasure. Gold, silver, fabrics, oil, spices, wood, precious stones, and other materials. So God and God's wisdom not only was orienting our hearts to habituation to give and to give freely from our hearts, but to also to teach us to lessen attachment to those gifts. It's so profound. So profound. And they gave, our ancestors gave, they gave freely, they gave so much that Moshe had to say, stop giving too much, stop giving, right? And how does that affect us today? You think we're always looking at how this relates to, say, the behavior and the habituation and the practice of our ancestors, what led to today. So let's look at a halacha today, a form of Jewish law and practice today, right? So the gold, right? The gold on the list, which is such a thing of desire, right? Gold, okay? And gold, you might think, is this to perform a mitzvah, right? It's this wonderful thing, but it's complicated, right? So performing mitzvot with gold. We try to make mitzvot, commandments, and how we live as Jews as beautiful as possible. It's an idea that's called hidur mitzvah, right? And sometimes using gold can actually be a problem. It's there to remind us. For example, if tefillin boxes are covered in gold, which we wear on the head and the arm, right, to remember God and the commandments, remember that we're taken out of Egypt, it makes them not kasher. They're not kosher. This comes from the Mishnah in Megillah 4:8. If there's gold on a shofar at the place where it is blown, then the shofar, the ram's horn or other, is not considered kasher. This is from Rosh Hashanah 27a. Gold on Yom Kippur. The Talmud in Rosh Hashanah 26a explains that the Kohen Gadol, the high priest in the Mishkan, but also in the Beit Mikdash, in the temple, did not wear gold clothing on Yom Kippur because, why? Gold might remind God of the Chet HaEgel, of the sin of the golden calf. For this reason, some people, including family members of mine, have a custom not to wear special gold jewelry on Yom Kippur. They limit their pleasure. Even though they would love that beautiful gold necklace, they take it off, they don't wear it. They limit their pleasure to acquire Torah, to acquire something greater than the gold, greater than the pleasure the gold may cause. This comes from Matei Ephraim, Yom Kippur 6:10-11. The same thing with jewelry on Shabbat. The Talmud says not to wear expensive jewelry on Shabbat because you might want to take it off and show your friend and share the pleasure. This is from Shabbat, the Babylonian Gemara, the Talmud 59b. So nowadays, most people don't take off their jewelry, but the truth is I have seen teenagers still do it. But so it's okay to wear it on Shabbat, even in places without an eruv. This comes from Penene Chalacha, Shabbat 21:14. It's even permitted to wear a gold watch on Shabbat because the concern was about taking it off and showing it, sharing the pleasure, because you're distracted in that moment. You got lost in the pleasure on the holy day, on Shabbat, right? You lean towards pleasure too much, right? That's what that is. It's mi'ut, ta'anug, right? It's so profound how we learn this, how our ancestors and God and the Torah come to teach us this, that we might not even pick that up, that they're coming with these great, beautiful pleasure gifts out of free will, out of generosity from their heart. And the whole time they're training themselves in a deep spiritual practice of discipline to draw closer to God, to serve God, and to limit that pleasure. To say, I can release myself of attachment to these items, to gold, silver, whatever it may be. That's our Torah today. That's our Mussar Mindfulness from the wonderful Torah portion, TERUMAH. We're going to move into our mindfulness meditation practice today. Please assume one of the classic 4 postures that is best for you today, depending on how your body feels. You could be seated like me at the edge of the chair, or on a zafu, a meditation cushion, wherever it's comfortable. You could be walking back and forth, not going anywhere in particular. You could be standing in a strong mountain pose so that you feel really secure in your meditation. You could also be lying down. If you have like chronic pain or sore back, please take permission to lie down. Keep the eyes open if you are lying down so you remain awake and alert. For the rest of us, I'm going to come to the edge of my seat, really ground my feet, hold them to the ground, being held by Mother Earth. Upright, beautiful posture, awake and alert, and at ease. That wonderful combination of meditation. Resting your hands wherever they're comfortable. I invite you to close your eyes. If you don't feel safe and comfortable, then just keep the gaze lowered so that your visual stimulation is narrowed. It's me'ut, right? So we want to invite ourselves fully here because even though we've been sitting and listening and teaching and learning together, sometimes we can go off our thoughts. So invite yourself fully here as you would a best friend. Heavy in the sit bones. Invite the mind, the thoughts, the sensations in the body, whatever emotions are arising, welcoming everything here in the guest house. With a deep inhalation, hold and out the mouth. Do you feel your shoulders drop? I did. Deep inhalation through the nose if you're able. Hold. Exhale from the mouth, pierce lips if you're able. Elongating the exhalation to double the amount of time of the inhalation. One last time. Inhalation. Hold. And exhale. What a gift, the gift of oxygen. We take it for granted so much. So wonderful to be mindful of it. How great it makes us feel usually. Let your breath come to its own natural rhythm. No need to control the breath or cause anything to happen. They are shifting into observation mode. Now we just watch simply whatever arises, not attaching ourselves to anything in particular. Whatever arises, whether it's a thought or a sensation in the body or strong emotion, just simply see if you can observe yourself with curiosity, with compassion, with a gentleness, a kindness. Every now and then you'll hear me go silent. Isn't that odd? I will stop speaking to allow us to have moments of silence, or at least freedom from listening to me speak. Because the truth is, if you listen, there's never really 100% silence. There's always some sounds, something coming into our awareness. This allows us to enter a bit more of what we call silent meditation, just to be with what is. This training, this practice of being with what is, teaches us detachment, to be able to observe without jumping onto whatever thoughts, whatever emotion or sensation there is. We don't have to identify with it. It is not us. It is ephemeral. It will pass. And that's one of the great lessons from TERUMAH, from our Torah portion today. is that when we give, it is lasting on an imprint in our soul, in our hearts, and it is also ephemeral. And that's why we must give again and again and again. It is a choice, it is a practice with unbelievable, beautiful consequences, some unknown, some long-term. And you notice when God commands to bring a gift from our hearts, it comes in the first and second Pesukim verses. And the people give without knowing why. People give without hearing, what do we get in return? The buy-in was pure nedivut. It's only in verse 8 that God says that I may dwell among you. So too, we must give. We must simply begin again and practice. And trust in the Almighty, that by verse 8 in our own lives, we will be told, so that I may dwell among you. We will spend the next few moments in silence. I will ring the bell when it's time to come out. Every now and then your thoughts will wander. When you wake up to it, just simply begin again. Bring your attention to your breath, to just observation. There's no need to beat yourself up. Think that you're a bad meditator. All thoughts wander sooner or later. That's just the nature of our brains. If you had your eyes shut, Gently and slowly open them. If it is your practice to bow, please do so. Bowing to Hashem, to the Almighty, to God, thanking God for today's awakening and practice, for bringing us to this moment together. Bowing to each other, taking refuge in community and the Sangha and the Vad and the community. Bowing to our ancestors, passing on this great wisdom to us and traditions. So grateful. Bowing to yourself for having the courage and discipline, to the skillfulness and wisdom to arrive and to sit with me and all the others who are joining us live stream on Facebook or on our YouTube channel. Please subscribe, or at our blog at the website at kehilatmussar.com. This is the path of Mussar Mindfulness. You are joining the Institute for Holiness, Kehilat Mussar Mindfulness. I am Rabbi Chasya Uriel Steinbauer, the founder and director. And today, before I say goodbye to you, we thank our lovely donors. Thank God we have them, right? To be able to offer this public offering. And we received many donations in loving memory of my Ima, my mother who passed back in December. May her memory be for a blessing. Still in mourning, still observing Kaddish day in and day out. Some days are easier than others, as I'm sure many of you are aware who've lost a parent. But without these amazing people who come in to donate, to give, so that we can offer, the Institute can offer these weekly public offerings, we wouldn't be able to do it without you. And so I promised, I could say if there's one middah that I need to work on, folks, and I've been working at it day in and day out, it is seder. I used to be, which is order, right? I used to be someone who had much more seder before children. I'm not going to blame them. I'm sure I'm very much responsible, but life got very busy and complicated, right, with children, and I just became less and less organized, and so just want to acknowledge that. So this week's awakening, I'm very grateful to share that our sponsor, and see, I had it right here in front of me. This is why you shouldn't follow my example and work with me. You can practice with me on Seder. I might have to do what I said I had to do last week, which is tell you next week, which is a little sad because I told you I would be. So forgive me for not being more responsible and showing up with this. But I can tell you, I know who the donors are because I've been in touch with them, most of them, which is many of them are parents of the students that I teach. I teach students ranging from before B'nai Mitzvah age, right? Anything in Torah. And I also teach adults, right? Mussar, mindfulness, and the path where we join together in a Vad and a Mussar group together. And many of my students, their parents reached out to me and gave a donation in lovely memory. And I will be sure to bring who the sponsor of this session is next time. Yeah, please forgive me. So with that, we say good night for now from here, from Haaretz. And I look forward to connecting with you on our next Torah portion, which comes after TERUMAH. And next for us is going to be in the book of Exodus of Shemot. It's going to be Tetzaveh. whole thing about what the Kohen wears. So